This is a really good question and can obviously understand where the family is coming from. And one thing that I tell families all of the time is there's only one way to do this process for admissions. For every five examples of something that maybe didn't work, there's going to be five other examples of the same thing that maybe did work. So context matters, the strength of the entire application matters. So there's so many variables that are in play here. In general, based upon what this person is sharing, I can totally understand where they're coming from. I think especially the comment about no matter where they're going to be, basketball is really going to be the main focus and sort of really how they spend all of their time. My concern to some degree is that homeschooled students, whether this is fair or not, are an incredibly small number of applicants in the admissions pool every single year. While admissions officers are always investigating the academic background of that student and testing is probably required for them, I think the day to day experience of a homeschooled student, socialization, navigating academic discussion, intellectual curiosity, even just navigating the day to day of being in a school setting really is just much different from a homeschool environment. So there are ways to mitigate that. Certainly, incredible letters of recommendation, having an activities list that is as robust as possible. In this particular situation, because basketball seems to be the focus of the student, that collaboration, that leadership, that teamwork is somewhat implied with the things that they'll be doing on a day-to-day basis. So in general, I think that this is something that could potentially work. My advice from the like athletic recruitment perspective would be to, before a decision is made, get a very objective evaluation of where the student is now within their athletic ability and what's the potential that they are going to be able to get to. Are they already incredibly strong athletically and are positioning themselves to be a D1 or D2 recruit? Are they very good, but maybe D3 potentially might be their ceiling? Are they not great right now? And the hope is to get recruited, but they're not on that pathway right now. Like each of those answers will also depend on the response to this particular question. But I do think that getting that evaluation from a private coach would be really important to really understand how realistic is this in the first place in regards to the foundation of that decision that they are trying to make. But I totally get where they're coming from. This is, I would say, less common than students choosing to go to like an athletically focused school. The biggest one sort of that we have in America right now is like IMG Academy. This is where so many sort of D1 athletes will go to. And while they're still getting a great education, they're training a ton. Like it's almost built into the curriculum. That obviously is a private school. It costs a ton of money. Not many students are even at the caliber to do that. There are going to be other institutions that are lower level athletically that still exist in a similar structure. So that might be something to look into as well. So I think there's many options here, but in a super specific way, it's not a terrible idea, but I think there's just more information that's going to be needed to figure out whether this actually really makes sense for the students and their athletic capability moving forward. So most of the time, testing is going to be required, even for a school that has like an overall test optional policy. Most of the time, they will require testing from a homeschool applicant. This can be debated. I think there's a bit of skepticism of what their academic profile means. Who's teaching them? What is that level of instruction? So anytime you have the ability, like the student is talking about a little bit already, to take classes at a local college to make sure that they're doing well in APs, to have that testing, all of that sort of is really helpful. So I think there's a difference in relation to some requirements, but also I think a difference in relation to how the academics are investigated. And then I mentioned in the beginning already, but just the socialization aspect. Are they still active in the community? Are they still being able to be connected to their community? All of those things really matter a lot as well too. When we have a student who's a more traditional applicant who's in a school, we still are concerned and still are doing an evaluation of those things. But when there's a homeschool student, there's just more time that we're spending like making sure that they are doing things that are active they are able to do in a college community that's going to ultimately be just way bigger and just different in terms of structure than they navigated during their homeschool years in high school. I think it's harder as a homeschool student, to be honest. And I think because number one, we don't see many of them in general. And then two, again, because of the skepticism that sort of exists academically, I think it's harder to be a homeschool kid. So in a lot of ways, if families are making that decision, then kudos to them for making the choice that best suits their child. I just think that the student then has to be even more independent, and they have to show the ability that they started things, that they joined things, that they didn't take their homeschool experience and just be very insular, but they still were able to expand their curiosity, their knowledge, their collaboration, their leadership, the ability to succeed in this top tier academic environment is harder to do as a homeschool kid because, as you mentioned before, the structure just isn't really going to be there. So, how are you independently finding opportunities? Like your level of success has to match or be stronger than the typical admits that these students are taking. There's no like bonus for being a homeschool kid. It's intriguing for sure, but you still have to meet every single requirements in every single nuance that AOs are really paying attention to within this process to be a successful homeschool kid. So anytime that you have the ability to interview, that would be a really great idea. If you have the ability to go to a college fair local in your community or visit the college campus or campuses that you're excited about, those would be really good opportunities for students to take advantage of as well, just so they can not only learn more about the institution, but also let the colleges know that they're still being really proactive in their journey of learning more about the schools as well. I think for me, I would have to know more about the students' basketball experience and where they're projected to be athletically. Do they have, as I said a little bit earlier, do they have the potential to be a strong basketball player who is going to compete with other students that are looking at the types of schools that they may be interested in actually applying to? That really is, although academics will always be the most important factor that admissions officers pay attention to, when I speak to other families and students about their athletic recruitment process, in a lot of ways, the athletic piece actually comes first. If you're not good enough, coaches could care less about you being in their pipeline. You have to be a strong enough athletic person or athlete within their pool to get that attention. So I love the fact that this person is asking about the academics and making it clear that their student is still going to be active within the community. But my biggest missing piece of information now is how good are they? You can be spending as much time as you want to practicing and getting ready to play, but ultimately everyone has a ceiling. And if their ceiling is not going to be strong enough to even be recruited in general, then I don't think that this is necessarily a good idea. If they happen to be someone who could be projected to be a strong enough athlete to gather D1, D2, or Division 3 supports already at this 10th grade, 11th grade level, then I think it's something worth considering. Again, as long as the academics and the extracurriculars are still going to be aligned with the mission of what their target schools is going to look like.